Ground Zero, Chapter 16, Rashmina, The Cedars of Afghanistan. "Give that back," Bassoon cried, and he lunged for his plastic airplane. Rashmina was too fast for him. She held it above her head and twisted away when Bassoon made another grab for it. "Give it to me," Bassoon commanded. "You're just a girl. You have to do what I tell you." "I'm not a girl. I'm your sister," Rashmina shot back, which somehow made sense. Bassoon swiped for the plane again, and Rashmina danced out of the way. "You can't tell the Taliban about Taz," Rashmina told her brother. "We gave him asylum." "Taz," Bassoon said. Rashmina blushed. "That's his name. The American soldier. You can't give him refuge and take revenge on him at the same time." "See if I can't," Bassoon told her. "Badal is as Pashtunwali is as to Nanawatu." Bassoon grabbed for the airplane, but Rashmina was too quick for him. "The Taliban don't respect Pashtunwali," Rashmina said. "They've killed just as many Afghans as the Americans have." "When was the last time we had peace?" Bassoon asked. "Under the Taliban, that's when. They ended the civil war." "The Taliban killed those families for no reason," Rashmina told him, feeling a flash of frustration. "They made women wear burqas and locked them away in their houses." "They gave people jobs," Bassoon argued. "Darwish and Arman told me." "Darwish and Aman, Darwish and Aman," Rashmina taunted him in a sing-song voice. "Darwish and Aman told me to jump off a mountain, so I did it. Do you ever have a thought that Darwish and Aman didn't give you first?" Bassoon's expression turned stormy. "All right, here's my own thoughts, Rashmina. Do you think I'm ever going to be able to afford to get married herding goats that have nothing to eat and growing crops in a never-ending drought?" "No," he said. "Why should I starve when the Taliban pay 20 times what I can make working for myself?" "They're killers, Bassoon. If you join them, you'll become one too," Rashmina said flatly. "Have you forgotten who killed the person who gave me that plane?" Bassoon said, pointing at the toy. He sounded calmer now, more resolute, as though arguing with Rashmina had talked him into joining the Taliban and not out of it. "The Americans dropped a bomb on our sister," Rashmina said, "on her wedding day." Rashmina tried to fight off that awful memory, but it came flooding back to her, overwhelming her. That day started off as one of the happiest days of Rashmina's life. Her sister Yela had been 16 and promised in marriage to a boy from a neighboring village. It was tradition to escort the bride-to-be to the house of her new family where the wedding would take place, and the procession was always a party. Rashmina's whole village had turned out for the parade. Married couples walked arm in arm, and young people sang and danced and fired rifles in the air. Rashmina and Bassoon had been 9 years old. They chased each other around the adults, laughing and squealing at the top of their lungs. Rashmina had finally caught Bassoon and paused to catch her breath. That's when Rashmina heard it, an angry buzz, like a hornet's nest. She and Bassoon had looked at the same time, searching the sky for the source of the sound. Rashmina saw it now in her mind's eye, as clear and sharp as she had seen it on that day. An American drone high in the sky. It was sleek and gray with wide wings like an eagle and a tail like a fish. She and Bassoon had watched it flew closer, closer, coming up behind the wedding procession. Something small and black detached from the drone and streaked out toward the front of the parade, toward her sister in her beautiful wedding dress, surrounded by all her friends. Rashmina remembered the swoosh of the missile, the gray tail of smoke behind it, and then Rashmina turned away, feeling the heat of the blast on her face all over again, as she stood there in the mountains with Bassoon 2 years later. Now that she was older, she understood what had happened. The happy gunshots of the wedding procession had registered as an attack on the American airplane flying so high up that none of them had seen it or heard it, but that had been enough for the American soldier in some tent miles away somewhere to fire a missile at them with a drone. If the Americans can't be here without killing innocent people, they must leave the valley, Bassoon told her now. Otherwise there'll be jihad. Rashmina understood her brother's anger. She felt it too, but a holy war wasn't the answer. "So you're going to leave our family and join the Taliban?" Rashmina said. "Leave me?" Bassoon swallowed. "Yes. And not because Darwish and Arman told me to. Because I want to." Rashmina nodded. She had known this day was coming, but a part of her wanted to pretend that things would never change, that she and Bassoon could be young and happy and carefree forever. But they were both growing up fast. Too fast. A chill went through her, like a winter wind cutting through her shawl. Bassoon chose that moment to dive forward, not for the toy plane, but for Rashmina. He tackled her to the ground and tried to pin her and take the plane away. Rashmina kicked and grunted. But where she was quick, Bassoon was strong. She tossed the plane away instead. Bassoon scrambled over her trying to get the toy, and Rashmina grabbed his foot. Bassoon fell flat on his face in the dirt, and Rashmina ran and snatched up the plane before he could get to it. "Ha!" Rashmina crowed. And she held the little plane in the air triumphantly. Bassoon stood, and Rashmina was shocked to see tears in his eyes. She wanted to make him feel mad, not sad. She suddenly felt terrible for taking the toy from him. "Keep it then," Bassoon said. He kicked a rock in Rashmina's direction, a little of the old anger overriding his sadness, and then he turned and walked away. Rashmina's heart broke. As twins, she and Bassoon knew exactly how to hurt each other, but they had always known where the line was, and when they'd crossed it. "Bassoon," Rashmina called. "Bassoon, I'm sorry." Bassoon didn't want to listen, and Rashmina trailed along behind him in silence. There was a graveyard on the other side of the mountain, and it matched their quiet mood as they walked through it. Hundreds of stone mounds dotted the hillside. The larger ones for men and women. The smaller mounds belonged to children and babies. Some of the rock piles had colorful blankets on them, mementos left by loved ones further recently buried. Over others bent tall wooden poles with ragged green flags on top, marking the graves of people who had died fighting the jihad against the Soviet Union when Rashmina's parents were children. In some places, the stones were scattered and low, and it was hard to tell there had been graves there at all. So many dead Afghans, Rashmina said quietly. Pasoon, if you join the Taliban, you're just going to end up dead and buried under a pile of rocks somewhere. So I should wait around and die in our village like our sister, Pasoon said without looking at her, without stopping. Like Baralis? Like old Nazina? Like Uncle Matar? Baba's leg was torn up by a landmine just clearing a field for planting. If I'm going to die one way or another, I might as well die fighting. For revenge, Rashmina said bitterly. For freedom, Pasoon told her. Everybody invades and tries to tell us how to live our lives. The Greeks, the Mongolos, the British, the Soviets, the Americans. The Taliban, Rashmina added. The Taliban are Afghans. Yes, but they only became powerful because they were supported by foreigners, Rashmina said. She had learned about it in school. People from Pakistan and Saudi Arabia who wanted to tell us how to live, and invaders always beat us so easily because they have better weapons than we do. Greek shields, Mongolo bows, British cannons, Soviet gunship, Taliban rockets. American drones, Pasoon added. Yes, American drones, Rashmina said, feeling a pang of sorrow for Hila all over again. But you know why we're always behind. Because while everybody else in the world is making things, we're fighting wars. We never get to move ahead, Pasoon. We're stuck in the past. Infidels and outsiders may conquer us, Pasoon said, still looking ahead, but they can never rule us. Conquering Afghanistan and keeping it are two different things. Rashmina huffed. Pasoon wasn't listening to her. Why would anyone want to rule Afghanistan, she asked, frustrated. There's nothing left to rule. Rashmina saw a dried-up old cedar cone on the ground and picked it up. Once their father had told them, giant cedars towered over every kilometer of these mountains. Anil told stories of streets in the capital, Kabul, lined with cedar trees. Now those trees were all but gone. Each invading army had cut down more and more of them, and the Afghans had cut down still more to pay for weapons to drive the invaders out again. Now Afghanistan was brown and rocky and dead. The only cedars left survived in the most inhospitable mountains, places where even armies feared to go. Is there some life left in this old cedar cone, Rashmina wondered? Something dormant inside, ready to sprout if given the room and resources to grow? Rashmina broke open the cone. There were still some seeds inside. She took one, leaned over, and she pushed the seed deep into the ground. The seed would grow to be a cedar tree 50 meters tall and stand for 1,000 years, if only everyone would let it. Pasoon, Rashmina said. What if there's another way? What if? But when she looked up, Pasoon was gone. Chapter 17. Brandon. Scars. Brandon's hands and feet moved like they were on autopilot as he and Richard made their way down the stairs. All Brandon could think about was what had just happened up on the 90th floor. Those people trapped in the elevator. When he turned around, they'd just been gone. And that poor woman, burnt all over. Brandon felt sick. He was the one who had told her she had to get out of there before the elevator fell. Brandon stopped and sat down amid the debris, his eyes hollow and unfocused. It's my fault, Brandon said. That lady, she got burned because of me. Richard stopped and turned around. He looked as sick and as sad as Brandon felt. Oh, kid, you can't blame yourself for any of that, he said. I told them they had to get out of the elevator, Brandon said. That lady ran through the fire because of me, because of what I said. Brandon, if she stayed in that elevator, she'd be dead now, Richard told him. What you said saved her life. Saved her life, Brandon said. She's going to be burned, scarred for the rest of her life, all because of me. I didn't save her life, I ruined it. At least she has a life to ruin, said Richard. Stay in the elevator and die, or run through flaming jet fuel and be horribly burned for the rest of your life, Brandon thought. What kind of choice was that? What would he have done if he'd been inside that elevator? He didn't know. Tears sprang to Brandon's eyes and he cried for the burned woman, for the people in the elevator, and for himself. Richard sat down beside him. It's going to be all right, kid, Richard told him. How old are you? Brandon didn't want to answer. He didn't want to talk, but he choked out a response. 9, he said. Richard nodded. Same age as me when my dad died in Vietnam. I wasn't there to see it, not like you were just now with that lady and those people in the elevator, but it wrecked me. I wish I could tell you there's something you can do to make it better, to make it not hurt, but there isn't. You just get over it eventually, because you have to. It scars over, like a bad cut. It still aches every now and then, when it's cold and gloomy outside and you're left alone with your thoughts. But most of the time, you just forget it's there. He wanted it to hurt forever. How could it not hurt forever? He owed it to that burned lady and those dead people in the elevator. Come on, Richard said. Let's get back down to the 89th floor. Richard worked in an office called Cosmo's Service. He knocked on a door and a woman opened it and let them inside. She shut the door behind them quickly and bunched a wadded-up jacket along the bottom of the door frame to block the smoke. I was beginning to worry that something happened to you, the woman said to Richard as she led them through the reception area. She was an Asian American and had long black hair pulled back into a ponytail. She wore gray slacks and a white blouse. A plane hit the building, Richard told her. We heard. I got my husband on the phone. I couldn't get your wife, but I left a message. I told her we're all right. She nodded at Brandon. Where'd you find him? He kind of fell into my lap, Richard told her. Brandon, this is my administrative assistant, Esther. Nice to meet you, Esther told him. She led them to the office farthest away from the door, with a window that looked south, toward the other twin tower. The air was mercifully clear here, and Brandon took a deep breath, grateful breath, and looked around. Sports jerseys hung in glass frames on the wall, and a framed photo of Richard with a pretty woman and 2 little kids sat on the desk. This was Richard's office, Brandon realized. There were 2 other people in the office with them. One of them was the oldest man Brandon had ever seen up close. His skin was light brown, about the same color as Brandon's, but wrinkled all over. He had white hair mixed with streaks of darker gray, a big bushy white mustache, and thick, bristly sideburns. He wore a maroon sweater vest over a brown plaid shirt, and on the top of his head was a dark brown pie-shaped cap with a button in the middle of it. He sat perfectly still and calm on the chair in front of Richard's desk, back straight, hands perched delicately on top of a polished wooden cane, as though things like planes crashing into buildings happened all the time. His name, said Richard, was Mr. Corey. He's Lebanese, Richard explained. I've heard him speak Italian, Arabic, French, and Spanish, but I don't think his English is very good. He works at the shipping company next door. And this is Anson. He's a software rep who picked the wrong day to make a sales call on the World Trade Center. Brandon turned to look at the other person in the office. Anson was a young white man with dark hair slicked back. He wore khaki slacks and a white shirt and a red tie. For some reason, he stood ramrod straight in the corner with his eyes closed. Brandon didn't understand until he came around the side of the desk. In one hand, Anson held a long white cane, about chest high, and in the other hand he gripped the harness for his dog, a light brown Labrador retriever, his guide dog. Anson was blind. Brandon reeled. If any of them should be panicking, it should be Anson. But besides old Mr. Corey, Anson was the calmest one there. Can I pet your dog? Brandon said, suddenly forgetting all the heavy things that had been weighing on him. What a good dog. Usually no, not when she's working, Anson said, but it's okay right now. Her name's Daphne. Brandon knelt and rubbed the big dog's head and scratched behind her ears. He'd always wanted a dog, but his dad kept saying no. They were gone too much from the house during the day to take care of one, Dad said. Brandon knew he was right, but he still wanted a dog of his own. At the desk, Esther turned on a radio. It was Anson who had the idea to look for a radio. See if we can get any news, Esther said. We just dug one up when you came back. Esther found a station with 2 morning radio show hosts talking and laughing. So get this, one of the radio DJs said. Reports are coming in that somebody flew a plane into the World Trade Center. The other DJ laughed. I mean, I get it, plane crash. But how bad a pilot do you have to be to run right into a skyscraper? I mean, what is it that they say in golf? Trees are 90% air? You know what I'm saying? You gotta try to hit one of the towers. The guy flying that plane must have been drunk, the other man said. He laughed. Hey, stewardess, cut that guy off. He's got a plane to fly. Turn the channel, Richard said, frowning. Brandon knew exactly how he felt. How could anyone be joking about something like this? If they'd just seen what he'd seen. Do they give DUIs to pilots? The DJ kept joking. Hey, buddy, pull it over. Hey, I'm talking to you. Land that plane before I... Esther twisted a knob on the radio. She found a news station where a woman was talking about the plane crash, and Brandon paid attention, hoping to learn something new about what happened. We're still unclear at this point how this horrible accident could have happened. The New York Fire and Police Departments are both responding, and we're awaiting reports from the ground. In the meantime, we have somebody on the line calling in by phone from one of the floors above the accident. Mr. Collins, are you there? I understand you're trapped in one of the offices of Cahpter Fitzgerald on the 104th floor of the North Tower. Can you tell us what it's like there? The 104th floor? Brandon immediately perked up. He and Richard shared a hopeful look. The fire had been worse on the 93rd floor. If there was someone alive on the 104th floor, that meant people above the impact had survived. That meant Brandon's dad was alive. Well, there's a lot of smoke, the man said from the 104th floor. The elevators are destroyed and all the stairs down are blocked. We called 911. They told us to stay where we are and they'll come get us. We just wanted to let our families know we're okay and... The interview went on, but Brandon wasn't listening anymore. He leaped to his feet. Richard, he's calling from the 104th floor. I know. That means your dad's okay. No, Brandon said. I mean, yes, but he's calling from the 104th floor. That means phones up there are still working. Brandon scrambled for the big black phone on Richard's desk. Why hadn't he thought of it before? He would just call his dad in Windows on the World.